the career is something that you need to be working on every single day. It's not something that you start and then you just go with the flow. So it's very important that you participate on the sessions. You have more than 30 sessions to where you can participate. Some are very focalized in one of the functions, sectors, or countries. Others are more general. But I invite you to join. I invite you to think about the way you're managing your career, because again, this has changed a lot lately. And I especially thank the team in ESADE Alumni, because I think again, it has been a great idea to do it now. It has been a joint effort of the whole team. And I think it's something that, it's not going to be the only year we're going to do it, but this is something we're going to be working on in the future. So I have the great pleasure to introduce you today to our first guest speaker. And the first thing I want to say is thank you, Bisila, for joining us today. For those who don't know Bisila, she was born in Spain, but I think that she lives in New York City now for I think that you've lived there for the last 20 years. Yeah, she's a United Nations award-winning entrepreneur. She's a global leadership speaker. She's also a speaker in diversity and inclusion. She's an expert. She's the founder of her own company that it's called BBIS. And also she has been working with an ONG. She's the founder actually of a nonprofit organization that has the aim of building libraries in the African continent, so children can discover the world through the books that they read. She says that she's as comfortable with a Spanish dancing dress than with an African also typical attire. So I think that you're going to enjoy a lot the conversation with her today and everything that she's going to be sharing with us. So I don't want to take any more of your time. Great pleasure. Thank you so much to the ESADE alumni team for organizing, and especially thank you, Bisila, for joining us, and the floor is yours.
Hello, Belen. Thank you so much for your kind introduction. I am delighted to be here with you all. Thank you, ESADE alumni organizers, for the kind invitation. And for me, today is a special day because I'm pretty sure that some of you are in this position to cope with uncertainty. And it's part of my path to really cope with uncertainty. And that's the reason why I was very excited to share with you my story today and tell you a little bit about me and how to face adversity and how to really deal with this roller coaster of changes. And as Belen said, it's an special moment in our lives because career is something that we have to build each day. So I've been an expert in just building up different ways to make my career matters. And the reason why this session is called A Brand Called You is because all of us, we can really shape our lives, our story, and our careers, but always connected with our own story. And for me to start the story, I will have to start by really my great-grandmother. Why I was born in Spain. The reason why I was born in Spain is because of my great-grandmother. My great-grandmother was a special woman. She was in the 40s studying in Spain. She started to become a teacher. That was her mission in life, to become a teacher. And she did a school for women called Women Get Up. In my language, in African language, it's called Waiso Ipola, which is the Bubi language from where I'm originally. But she wanted to do this school because she realized that women in Africa were behind and they needed to just get up. She was a woman that she thought that education was key, and it was really the door to really make a decision about what kind of life you want. She bought a house in Spain back in the 60s. And the reason why she chose Valencia is because she was thinking that it's closer to the climate that we have in Equatorial Guinea. My father was his grandson, and he always says, I'm not an immigrant like everyone else because I came to Spain with the keys of my house in my pocket. When he came to Spain in the 70s, it was rare to see a Black man walking in the streets. And he was the first person to graduate in law school in Valencia University. A lot of people said, go back to your country. Go where you come from, Black. And he said, you know what? I'm in my country. I have the keys of my house here. So this kind of sense he gave us of belonging to where we were born. Because even though our childhood was difficult for my brothers and I, he always gave us this sense of pride. I remember the first time I realized that I was a Black kid in a white world. I was in the school and the teacher make changes, and people who were sitting down in the front of the class, they have to go to the back of the class. You know that the chatty chats, they put them always on the front so they keep quiet and then they disturb the class. So that day, my teacher made the decision to just shift places, and she sit me next to a boy. And this boy started to cry, really hysterical crying. And he starts saying, please, teacher, change me. I don't want to become Black like her. I don't want to become Black like her. I did not understood at that moment what was going on. And the teacher, even less so, she was very confused. She didn't know how to cope with the situation because diversity was not a case in the air. I think I was 7, 8 years old. So it was in the 80s. So I came back home and I told my parents what happened. And guess what? My parents said, look in the mirror. What color are you? And I said, well, kind of brownish, but not Black. And my father said, you know what? You have two problems. You are Black and you're a woman. And with that, you will have to cope all your life. For me, at that moment, I have to realize that I was different from the other kids in my class. But eventually, I make a decision. You could choose to feel different and separate yourself from the rest, or you can choose to be special. And that was my choice, because I know that in each of us, there is something that makes us special and unique. And that is exactly our brand. And who we are is our brand. So that's exactly what I did, to choose to be special and to find what was unique in me. Another thing was that my parents didn't know how to really make me understand what it means to be Black in a white world, particularly in Europe. So I remember when I was reading my beautiful magazines in fashion and getting all this gossip, how one day they removed all these readings from me. And they said, from now on, you're gonna read really serious books. So they start giving me books about Pan-Africanism to understand what was the Black experience in the Caribbean. I read Frank Fanon, Frederick Douglass. I needed to know about Jomo Kenyatta, about Kwame Nkrumah, all of these leaders that they spoke about the Black experience or about the colonization process. They also make me understand the difference between the scars that the slavery will leave you and the scars that the colonization leave you. All of this I learned at a very young age. And not only that, I have to read these books, I have to make summaries about this book. So I had a very unusual upbringing. It was completely different from other kids because that was the readings that I had to read. But it made me understand that to be Black in the world was meaning different things. I also have to read biographies about women because my father thought that I needed to get that science that I could achieve everything I wanted to. So one of the first biographies I read was from Benazir Bhutto, the first prime minister in Pakistan. It impressed me a lot to see that women could achieve just anything. And as I was moving through life, I remember perfectly that I decided to study law and economics because I wanted to be an actress. But for my family, immigrants from Africa, they said, we then came from all the way to Africa to Spain for you to become an actress. So there is no way. You better do something serious. So I ended up doing law and economics. And guess what? When I finished the career, with that promise that when you really study so much and you're committed to your goals, that I will get a job. And back then it was not internet. It was in the 90s, late 90s. So I just have to type with an Olivetti machine, all of these letters, make my resume polished and send it away. And I was going to these post offices full of letters, hoping that I will get a job. Sometimes I have the experience to talk to people on the phone, and they will not identify at all that I was Black because my accent in Spanish, you could never identify where I'm from. And I get to these meetings after the beautiful phone calls. And then when they saw me, they were like, oh, I'm so sorry. I think it was a misunderstanding. We gave the job to somebody else. And I could read in their face that they really were surprised to see my face because they could never really guess that the person that they will have in front of them was Black. So I was very discouraged, and I felt, oh my God, I'm invest so much time in studying. And then what happened? They promised me that if you study at least 2 careers and then you go and you do an MBA, which I did, I will have a perfect position in life to just choose. And it did not happen. Lucky for me, one day I found this wonderful book that it was called Real Magic from Wayne Dyer. And in this book, he said, what you believe, you create. This book really changed my life. It changed completely my vision about what was able to do and what was able to accomplish. And I would like you to join me in an exercise. I know that you might see that I'm going to ask you for something, and I'm going to just ask you to trust me on this one, because it's an exercise that I did for myself, and I would like to share with you, because this is all about sharing what worked for me. And it was about the power of visualization. So if you want to do it with me, I will just ask you for you to close your eyes and that you to relax and just trust me for a few seconds. I will tell you what was the reason why I achieved my first dream. And I manifest something that it was one of my biggest desires in life. So I close my eyes and I invite you to do the same. And just breathe here with me. And with the eye of your mind, imagine, where would you like to wake up this morning? In what kind of house? In what kind of bedroom? Next to whom? Just imagine for a second. And imagine go into a beautiful bathroom and just get ready to go to work. And just imagine how you would like to be dressed, how you would like to look in the mirror. And imagine where you would like to go. Maybe you want to work in your home office, or maybe you want to go to a workplace where beautiful faces, smiling faces, say good morning to you today. Imagine the kind of meetings you would like to have. And imagine with what kind of people you would love to have your lunch today. Imagine in which country you would like to live and work. Imagine in what kind of house you would like to live. And just like that, imagine yourself going back to your home, have a beautiful evening, and wake up the next morning in the place of your dreams. This simple exercise is the exercise that I did after I finished college, thanks to this book, Real Magic, The Power of Visualization. My dream city was New York. And this is the funny part. I learned in my last year in MBA that I was doing that it was an organization that you could really promote business outside of your country. This was the Office of Ethics and the Office of IVEX. I was living in Valencia. IVEX was the trade regional office of Valencia. And Ethics is the trade office that they have from the government of Spain. And it was very interesting because when I learned about what was trade and international business, something resonated with me. And I said, oh my God, I love to travel, and how nice it will be to promote your products in another market. I love that. So when the teacher mentioned that in the school and he said that there was some internship available, I made the decision to apply. And you see, I applied to both, to the regional office of Valencia, and I also did the one in Madrid that it was for the whole Spain. And one day I got a call from my mother. Back then, when you have a cell phone, it looks like a shoe. It was so heavy. And I remember that to remove that from my bag, it was so heavy. And my mother called me and said, you know what? Somebody called you from IVEX, the Valencian Institute of Export, that they would like to make an interview with you. And I was so happy. So they were having 8 scholarships. 5 of them were in different exotic countries, and 3 of them was in Valencia. So I was hoping that I will get one of these offices. They have China, they have Mexico, they have Argentina. I don't remember the others, but it was so exciting. Yes, they have one in the United States, but it was not in New York office, it was in LA office. So I said, it doesn't matter, any of these options, it would be amazing for me. Guess what happened? They give me the internship, but it was in Valencia. And I was not happy about that, but still I took it because I just finished to study and I have this tremendous opportunity to learn about international business. Why not? So even though that it was not exactly the perfect thing for me, eventually, behind sometimes some disappointments, it is a huge gift for you. And that is exactly what happened. Because when I was a few months in, learning about how the whole international business worked, I was in the information department. So I get to provide the information about what was going on in each market to the different corporations in Valencia. And it gave me a beautiful outlook about international business around the world. One thing an interesting thing happened. They changed the director. And for the first time in the history of this organization, it was a woman coming to be the first general manager of IVEX. It was interesting for me that instead of feeling the excitement, I heard that people were talking about how she got this position. Let's see. She probably had some benefits, privileges, all kind of things. So I was very confused because I said, oh my God, it's the first time that we had a woman leading this organization. Everybody should be happy. But instead of that, even though there was 70% of women in the corporation, they were not so happy. And the first day that she come to do her work there, it happened that at the end of the day, I find her in the elevator. So I asked her, how was your day? And she was a little bit surprised and she looked at me like, who are you? And I said, well, I'm the intern in the information department. And I would like to ask you a question since I have you here. How did you manage to become the director of IVEX? And she said, well, I studied law. And yeah, this is how I get here. And I said, then I'm in the right way. Maybe one day I will become the director. That was the innocence of the time. And I said, well, while I have you here, I have a dream. I would love to work in the office of New York. And she said, why? And I said, because that was always my dream, and I know I will do an excellent work. I know that if you give me the chance, I will give the best of me. So I would like to ask you, since you're here, if you would give me the opportunity. So many times we end up not achieving what we want because we don't dare to ask. I asked. And to make the long story short, at the end, I end up in New York City. That was my dream. Maybe in my mind is that book that I read and that visualization that I did that happened to take me to New York. But the truth is that I also believed, and I asked the question, how many times we complain about things that our bosses don't listen to our projects, or sometimes we're thinking I deserve a raise and they don't give it to me, but did we ask? And sometimes no might become a yes, a big yes, but we need to keep trying. And I did. I really fight for it. So I ended up in New York City, and that was great. I'm so happy I was in the big city and I have a great job. I get to promote the companies from Valencia in the United States. And it was very interesting because my English was not really the best. And it's different when you think you speak English. It's another thing when you have to make cold calls and make trade missions and everything. And I remember how hard it was. I remember I have to call sometimes 15 importers to just tell them that I want to sell olive oil or spices, azafran, saffron, Spanish saffron. And I would be like dialing and say, this is Bisila Bokoko. I call from the regional office of Valencia. And some people was like, you know what? I have no patience for that. Call me when you speak English. So also realize how difficult it is sometimes to understand the cultural boundaries, the way that things work. And that's the reason I also learned how to understand diversity. I had a boss in Valencia that came from time to time, and he liked to call me in a loving way, Snow White. So one day he came to visit and he started screaming, Snow White, come to my office. Snow White, come to my office. And everybody who was American in this office was livid. They could not believe that he called me Snow White. And from my perspective, growing up in Spain, I did not realize that this was completely unacceptable in the US. So that's the reason why I have started to realize what diversity means, and also how this inclusive language, it was important. We didn't know about that. We learned a lot about these things, even us. I learned about culture. I have to make a project in Disney, and I have to be with different people from different countries. And one of the biggest trainers that they give us is how to cope with the different cultures. So then I understood about cultural intelligence. I also understood the difference between prejudice, between stereotypes and discrimination. The stereotype, you might think that because you are from Swiss, you are always on time. That is a stereotype. Prejudice is when I might don't feel comfortable with a group or another. And discrimination is when I take an action towards that. I might not hire somebody because it's from this culture or that culture. So all of these differences I start to make because I understood how this works. But it was because I was in another context and my way of being in the world changed when I came to the United States. That also is the reason why I started to become very interested about diversity and inclusion. And I understood how people could be better leaders, inclusive leaders, humanist leaders. All of this started to become crystal clear for me when I was living there. Another thing happened too. I became the director of the Spain-US Chamber of Commerce. This also came really like a surprise because when I applied, I thought that I would never have a chance. But sometimes you need someone to put the stairs for you to go up. And that's really the invitation that I give you. If you have one day the chance to help someone, do that. How it happened, it was because an amazing person and a lady really, she was going back to Spain and she was giving a farewell party. And even though the process of selection for the executive director position at the Spain U.S. Chamber of Commerce was already very much spoken and they were already interviewing people, she said, you know what, maybe you could do it. And I said, I don't believe I could do it. I didn't believe in myself, but she did. I just happened to have my second child and I thought I won't be able to cope. I thought that I would not be able to really conciliate my family life with my work, but she believed in me. And so many times we don't believe in ourselves, and that's why we need a supportive network. We need to have a network of cheerleaders, people who really can look at us and say, yes, you can. And that's exactly what she did. And I ended up being the executive director of the Spain U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And that's completely changed my life too, because I got to see how international business work, but from the whole perspective of Spain. And on the top of that, I also joined forces with the European Chamber of Commerce and with the Latino Chamber of Commerce because of the way that Spain is, that we have the position to become very close to Latin America and also from the European Union. I got to really work with different countries and learn about how you really sell your products and how you market your products in a market that is extremely competitive. It also happened that it was the time that the Spanish corporations were coming to do business and invest in the United States. Before it was just import export, but at that time, back in 2005, it was when the big corporations were just buying companies. I saw Iberdrola buying Energy East or Banco Santander acquiring Sovereign Bank and become Santander here and change completely the brand and become a brand in the United States. So it was a very fascinating time where I learned how really you could become relevant in a market and what is the steps that you have to do to become relevant in a market. But I also learned what is the steps that really could make you fail in the market. Sometimes we believe that because we're being successful in our home market, we could do the same things in the other market, and it doesn't happen that way. So you need to adjust. And one of the key points is flexibility and adaptability. And listen, and join forces with people who know better about the market. So this is the things that I learned during my tenures, during 7 years at the Spain U.S. Chamber of Commerce. But something else happened. And it was that because I was the director, I thought that this is who I was. It came to my head. So I became really arrogant. And I believed that I had so much power because I was sitting down at the table with the top CEOs of Spain and the top CEOs of the United States. And one day they invited me to go and I lost my job. And when this happened, you have to ask yourself a question. What part of me has some responsibility in these actions? And that is exactly what I did. I could use to be in the victim mode and say, poor me, they kicked me out, I was fired. Or I could use the creative mode. What I'm going to create from here and what was my responsibility in these actions. And I realized that, yes, I had responsibilities. I was complaining about my job. I was complaining about the people who I was working with. I was criticizing. I was critical about the policies of my bosses, the board of directors. But it was not my company. I never really had a company. I tell people how they have to manage the company, how they have to invest, but I never took risk. So when I make that reflection, of course, when they kicked me out, this was on a Friday, typical like in the movies, right? They kicked me out, they came to my office and they said, you know what, hand us the keys and the credit card and everything. And I said, okay, can I take my things? They said, no, So I said, at least I will take the pictures of my kids, right? So I just put this in a little box and I came down. The office was in the Empire State Building. And it was such a romantic moment, me down with my box, just not knowing what direction my life will take. So what was my choice? Call my mother. And my mother was just in drama mode and I said, oh my God, now what are we gonna do? And I said, Mommy, I called you for you to give me, some comfort. And now you're crying. It's not a drama. I would just go to Spain and see you because it's gonna be your birthday next week. And now I have time and I will think what I do. So I exactly remember when I returned to United States, and you know what is to go through immigration department in the United States, right? That they ask you so many questions. And I remember before, anytime that they asked me, where do you work? I just showed them my business card. I am the executive director of the Spain U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And they have these flags from the United States and everything. And I was so proud about that. And I thought that this is who I was. So one that day, the officer asked me, where do you work? I said, no, I work for Bisila Bokoko. That was my answer. Because I realized that I didn't want to have the feeling to be fired again. And I realized that my biggest fear was to become an entrepreneur. But this is who I was. Because I wanted to do things my way. And what gave me the feeling that I could do it inside of another company and taking all these decisions and taking all this risk when it was not my company. So I made the decision to become an entrepreneur and I created BBBS. And this was one of my ventures, the second one actually, because the first one I created when I was still working at the Spain U.S. Chamber of Commerce because I was in fear. As a daughter of immigrants, of course, financial safety, security is the most important thing. So how do I will adjust to don't have a salary, to don't have a mattress? And this was a tough thing for me. So I spent a very tough year, which for me was a personal development year. I used the time to really work hard on myself, to understand who I was, to do a lot of self-knowledge exercises, to use mentors and understanding myself, do some coaching, and at the same time putting my company together. I started at the kitchen of my little house because at the same week that I was fired, I also got divorced. I realized that it was something toxic in my work. It was also something toxic in my personal life. And that was hard. Of course it was. It was very, very painful. But after that, I really found myself. And I found really doing what I love because BBBS is in the business of doing good, doing well. I also create a project because as an African, you know what? I was never in Africa before. The time that I was in Africa for the first time, I was 35 years old. And it was a gift for me. And I remember to arrive in Ghana the first time and saying, oh my God, everybody is Black here. Everybody is African. And being so happy that I was in Africa for the first time. And something really magical happened in this trip because as I was really getting into the culture and understanding everything, how it works, I met the chief of Kokofu. Kokofu is a little village next to Kumasi, one of the biggest cities in Ghana. And when I arrived there, it was a very interesting thing because we had a great conversation. He loved America. He explained me that his kids were living there. And then at some point he said, you know what? I want you to become the queen of development of Kokofu. And I said, oh my God, I am a queen. That's the first thing that I thought about. I want to be a queen. And after that, we had this conversation and he ended up giving me a piece of land next to his palace. I said, well, now that my ego has been relaxed for a little bit, can you just explain me what you would like me to do for you? And then he said, you know what? This is for you to really make a decision. I want you to take 3 days. And I'm pretty sure that one morning you will get up and you will know exactly what you could do. And exactly happens like that. It's not that I just saw it in my dreams or anything like that. It was not like that. But then I realized that if I knew about Africa all of these years, it was because of the books that I've been reading. If I knew about who was the Ashantis, it was because all of the books I read about the different tribes in Africa. So I realized that if I learn about Africa through books, they also could learn about the world through books. And I also realized that maybe I could not change completely their lives. But sometimes when you read the right book and you have access to education, you could really make the right decisions that would take you what for you might be successful. So that is exactly what I did. And I remember coming back to New York super excited and saying, okay, I'm going to build a library in Africa. I was not really planning to become a philanthropist and to do all these projects. It was through a conversation with my lawyer when I was telling him the story that he said, you know what? If you want, I could just make a foundation for you. It will be my gift and you could do this. So I said, yeah, okay. And I started. And then people start to appear in my life that they start helping me. I didn't know how to build libraries, but I just met several librarians that they helped me to do that. And we start traveling to Africa and just putting these libraries together. You know what? If you want to do good, you just start. Because at that moment, I could guarantee you that I was very far from being financially safe. But I realized that if I help somebody, only one person, and I could inspire one kid at a time, that at least it will be food for my soul. And that was exactly what this feeling is. I mean, when you really help someone, you believe that you've been so kind and generous, but at the same time, it's something that really feeds your soul so much, and you are so happy. So this is what we started. We started with this first library in Ghana, and this came to another beautiful project. The second one was in Zimbabwe. Somebody saw this project in Facebook, and this kid came and met me in Cape Town. I was there for the World Economic Forum for a conference, and he came all the way from Zimbabwe to Cape Town in South Africa in a bus. And he explained me, you know what, I studied law, and I know that there's many talented kids in my town. His town is called Chiramanzu, a small town in Zimbabwe, close to Harare. But you know what? He said, I still would like you to help us. And I said, okay, if you help me, I help you. So we built the second library. And then it came Uganda. And we did a library in Uganda. And then it came Kenya, and so on. Sometimes, some years, we cannot even build a library. We have also faced many financial difficulties through the years because it's self-financed and it's financed by BBBS. But the truth is that we did something. Sometimes I just travel with books in my suitcases and I do what I can. And sometimes my friends help me. Sometimes we just read to the children. But you see, what beautiful problems I have when somebody called me and they said, oh, an elephant just take down the fences in your library in the middle of the savannah in Kenya. And that's a great problem to have. So this is exactly who I was. I realized that I was Spanish. I was American and African. I'm a cultural hybrid. I don't need to choose who I am. The whole life, the biggest questions that people asked me for me was, where are you from? When people ask me where I'm from, it was so difficult for me to just answer that simple question until one point that I make the decision that I don't have to choose. I could be Spanish and I love it. And I love flamenco and I love my country. And of course, I love United States, the country that raised me professionally. And when I'm so attached, and I've been living for the last 22 years, and I love my African roots. Thank also for my grandparents and my parents. They make me proud of my roots. And that's my brand. I'm a cultural hybrid, and I'm very proud to be that. And I make a recipe in my life and my career to mix all that, and that became my career. I don't need to choose. I studied law and economics, yes, and I still apply it. But I was missing that part because as I told you at the beginning, I wanted to become an actress, right? But I have a very big fear. I have a huge fear to public speaking because when I was a little child, they only asked me to learn a poem and say that in the stage in an African party that my family was putting together in Spain to celebrate our culture. And when I get into the stage, I forgot absolutely every word of this poem. I couldn't say it. And I saw the faces of my family. And they were so disappointed. And so many times my parents told me, if you fail, every African that comes behind you, you know, they will have that stereotype. So you could not create the stereotype that Africans will not working, that we lazy or something like that. So you better work. So I had this, the weight of the whole African continent in my shoulders for so long that when I did not perform that day, I developed a big fear to speak in public. Through my career, I just get by because I never did an oral exam in law school. And then when I was the director of the Spain US Chamber of Commerce, it was very simple. I have a chairman. So I wrote his speeches and I let him talk. And sometimes I only have to present the numbers of the organization. And it was simple. Sometimes I just have to speak about how the relationship, the economic relationship between Spain and the United States goes, on how to do business in the United States. But I have a beautiful presentation. I never had to speak in public through all these years. And sometimes behind your fears, there is a tremendous opportunity. Fear is not there to stop us. Fear is there to become a compass, to really prevent us to do crazy stuff. But the thing is that fear could become our friend, could lead us to the direction of our dreams. Because today, I just have the opportunity to share my story and to speak in audiences. I also have the opportunity to do works about diversity and inclusion. And this became another part of my career that I was not expecting. And how it happened is very funny because the Ministry of Culture of Equatorial Guinea asked me to present Miss Tourism for the first time in Africa. The context for election of Miss Tourism is going to be in Africa. So what was her idea? Why Bisila don't present? She speaks Spanish, English, French. She might understand some Portuguese. Equatorial Guinea is in Central Africa, next to Gabon and next to Cameroon and next to some of the Portuguese countries. So she called me up and said, I got a great idea. You're going to present Miss Universe. You're going to be the host. You're going to be the MC for these awards. How could I say no when the first time that my country asked me for something, and how I say no? And on top of that, I have my family watching. And I said, okay, I could not say no. Well, I arrived in Equatorial Guinea and the producers put me in the stage, give me the script, and I tried to do it. So the next day, they didn't call me to come back to rehearsal. So the ministry called me and said, why you are not rehearsing? And I said, I don't know, nobody called me. And she said, meet me at the convention center. It was in the convention center of Malabo, the capital of Equatorial Guinea. So I get there and the producers told her, I'm very sorry, Mom, but Madam Minister, she could not really do this. I mean, she's horrible. You know what? She transformed in something different, like kind of a monster. And she said, you know what? Then I'm sorry to tell you that we're going to cancel the tourism in Equatorial Guinea. And you're going to give me back the money that we sponsor for making the awards in this country. And all of the misses stop performance. Everybody stop. I almost become white in that moment because I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do right now? Oops. And I said, you know what? It's okay. Somebody else could do it. And then she said, no, you're going to do it. No one is coming to my country and tell me what to do. This organization was from UK. And she said, I want somebody from the country doing it, and it's going to be you. So you have till 6 a.m. this morning to just change the script, because right now they wanted to do it only in English, and I want it also in Spanish, and I want it also in French. And you're going to do it. And by the way, 7 presidents are coming from different countries. Okay. Congo, Sao Tome and Principe, Gabon. And I was like, okay. So what I did, I pray. I had nothing else to do. But I realized that if I overcome that fear, something might happen. And I did. I did that performance. I did what she asked me to. And the truth is that when you overcome your fears and you prove yourself that you are better than what you think you are, something magical happened. After that, other countries asked me to host their events. I started to speak in public, and some speaker bureaus hired me to become one of the speakers. And today I have the pleasure to share who I am, my story, or talking about business or leadership, about diversity and inclusion, themes that are very close to my heart. And I have the opportunity to share. So you definitely could make a cocktail with your career and take all that things, but sometimes watch and see what is the limits of your mind. What is your limited belief? What is that thing that you're telling yourself? Because so many times we're talking to ourselves in a way that is not compassionate, and we're thinking that we could not do it, but we can do it. They make a study in Harvard, just giving biographies of remarkable women to other women who were not able to really access to positions of executive positions. They give other books, to another group. They make a study group, and they realize that these women, after reading 10 biographies of women who achieved something, they changed the mindset and they thought they could. And they start really to changing their careers and moving up on the ladder of success. So sometimes, it's not the world outside what is preventing us to become successful, it's ourselves. And we need to take that responsibility and understand that sometimes that fears, sometimes the way that we grow up. I had a circle of so many people telling me, you know what, you will not achieve this, you will not achieve that. And we believe it. Sometimes our teachers terrorize us and tell us that we're not good enough. So many of my teachers also said that to me. And if we really choose to become creators instead of become victims, I believe that we all have a chance, and you have a chance. You could definitely change that. And then of all the things that become your passions, that you are your passion, you can create a career from that. Because that is exactly what I'm doing right now. I create my career based on the things that are really close to my heart and passion. This is why I create the foundation of BBLP, Bisila Bokoko African Literacy Project. This is the reason why I also love to help corporations to achieve their dreams. This is what we are. We are a dream factory. When you want to go to a different market, we help you to open the doors to go into this market. I also and I love to share my story with audiences around the world. And I love to help people to understand diversity better, understand what is the way of communication, inclusive communication, and understanding how the leadership of the 21st century is a more humanist leadership. All of this is part of what I do right now. And our brand has to be based really in authenticity and really consistency, because every story is worth to tell. And don't forget that your network is your net worth. I think that we all really have these people around our lives that are toxic, and they tell you, oh my God, be careful. And you tell them that you want to do something, and they always tell you why not you should do something. My suggestion to you is start thinking, why yes, I should do something. When the amount of yes is bigger, just go ahead. Because you already scared yourself anyway. You already know what could go wrong. All of us, we know. But the truth is, if you shift the focus and you start thinking about why yes, why really this matters to you, and this is exactly what I do. I just focus on the why yes. When I started with my foundation, I definitely had no money to really give away. I was the mother of two, divorced, with a new business in my kitchen by myself. But why yes? Why yes? Because I wanted somebody to read a book and get inspired. So if I have to do that and just give one book, but send it one book, it's enough. Because your amount of yes should be always bigger. If they don't invite you to dance, because that is what is diversity around and inclusion, just invite yourself to the dance, invite yourself to the table. And if they don't take you, it's fine. But what I have realized in my life is that many no's and knocking doors and take them down at the end, you're going to get your big yes. So many times you are so discouraged because things don't go the way you want it to go and you give up. There is another book that I love that is called Mastery from Robert Greene. And he says it needs 10,000 hours to become a master of something. So what makes you believe that you have to quit when somebody says no for the first time and then you become disappointed? When you are committed to your dream, you never give up. You keep doing it. You keep trying. And that is exactly my invitation. I know that we are going through hard times. I did. And I just saw face crisis and my company was going up and up and up. And then one day I have to let go of people, projects change, I lost clients, things happen, I have to change direction. So you become flexible, adaptable, you see, and you start to really being comfortable in the uncomfortable. This is exactly what you develop. And this is like a muscle. It's day by day. It's not something that just happened overnight, but you train yourself to do that. So I know that all of you are capable to shape your careers to become really what you want to become, because this is the brand that you want to build. That's who you are. And your brand is your story. And only you can tell that. And only you know what you really want. And to just conclude, I would love to read you one of the poems that for me has been my compass in life to understand and to inspire me. It's called Ithaca. And I would love you to allow me to just read this poem to you. It's from Constantine Cavafis. And he said, when you set out on a journey to Ithaca, pray that the road is long, full of adventure, full of knowledge. The Laestrygonians and the Cyclops, the angry Poseidon, do not fear them. You will never find such as this on your path if your thoughts remain lofty, if a fine emotion touches your spirit and your body. The Laestrygonians and the Cyclops, the fierce Poseidon, you will never encounter if you do not carry them within your soul, if your soul does not set them up before you. Pray that the road is long, that the summer mornings are many, when with such pleasure, with such joy, you will enter ports seen for the first time. Stop at Phoenician markets and purchase fine merchandises, mother of pearl and coral, amber and ebony, and sensual perfumes of all kinds. As many sensual perfumes as you can. Visit many Egyptian cities to learn and learn from scholars. Always keep Ithaca in your mind. To arrive there is your ultimate goal, but do not hurry the trip at all. It is better that you let last for many years and to anchor at the island when you are old, rich with all you have gained on the way, not expecting that Ithaca will offer you any riches. Ithaca has given you the beautiful trip. Without her, you will have never set out on the road. She has nothing more to give you. And if you find her poor, Ithaca has not deceived you. Wise as you have become, with so much experience, you must already have understood what Ithaca means. The reason why I love this poem is because what really matters is the journey, not the destination. Enjoy every part of the journey. Just stop, just enjoy everything. every setback, it's fine. You know, when you find a stone in the road, just jump on it and keep going. Because then you will realize that when you really enjoy all the part of the journey, when you get to your destination, you will not feel disappointed or empty because you enjoy all the way of it. So thank you so much for your attention today. And I'm really, really looking forward to see what your career taking you. What is your destination? What is your story? What is your brand? Your brand. And I would love you to share that with me. Thank you.